What does Zion truly mean to the Rastafari? Is it a physical place, a spiritual idea, or something even deeper? In this video, we'll explore the powerful concept of Zion within Rastafarianism, a symbol of hope, freedom, and divine connection. From its roots in the struggles of post-colonial identity to its role as a cultural and spiritual compass, Zion stands at the heart of Rastafarian belief. Rastafarianism is more than just a religion. It's a way of life, a resistance to oppression, and a vision of unity with the divine. Emerging in 1930s Jamaica, it offered a new lens through which to see Africa, spirituality, and liberation. And at its core is the idea of Zion, the Promised Land. If you're curious about faith, history, and the global reach of African identity, this is a journey worth taking. Subscribe now, like the video, share it with others, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. To understand Zion and Rastafarianism, we must first look at the roots of the movement itself. Rastafarianism was born in the early 20th century, emerging from the struggles and hopes of the African diaspora, particularly in Jamaica. It was a time when many were seeking meaning, identity, and liberation after centuries of slavery, colonialism, and displacement. A key figure in this awakening was Marcus Garvey, a Jamaican political leader, visionary, and founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNI. Garvey preached Black pride, self-reliance, and the repatriation of African people to their ancestral homeland. His famous prophecy, "Look to Africa, where a Black king shall be crowned, he shall be the Redeemer," was a pivotal moment. When Haile Selassie I was crowned Emperor of Ethiopia in 1930, many in Jamaica saw this as the fulfillment of Garvey's words. To them, Selassie was no ordinary king, he was divine. This belief marked the beginning of the Rastafari movement. It wasn't organized like traditional religions. It had no central church or single doctrine. Instead, it spread through small communities, spiritual reasoning sessions, and deeply symbolic rituals. Rastafarianism was, and remains, a deeply personal and communal faith, grounded in lived experience and spiritual revelation. Ethiopianism, a religious and political ideology that linked African descendants in the diaspora with biblical Ethiopia, also played a crucial role. It drew from Christian texts, especially the Old Testament, to frame Africa not as a continent of despair, but as a sacred land, Zion, the Promised Land. Rastafarianism gave a name and form to the deep longing of a people for home, dignity, and divine justice. It was a movement of resistance, but also a vision where Zion was not only possible, but destined. Let's now explore how this vision of Zion took shape within Rastafari philosophy. In Rastafarianism, Zion is far more than a place on a map. It is a sacred concept, a destination both physical and spiritual, external and internal. For many faiths, Zion symbolizes a heavenly city or a promised homeland. But in Rastafari, Zion carries a layered meaning, deeply rooted in history, identity, and liberation. At its most basic level, Zion is seen as the Promised Land. For Rastafarians, that land is Ethiopia, an African nation untouched by colonial conquest, ruled by a Black monarch, and home to a legacy of independence and sovereignty. Ethiopia is not just a geographic location. It represents freedom from Babylon, the oppressive system that symbolizes the West. It's a land of righteousness, a spiritual homeland where Black people can reconnect with their divine heritage. But Zion is not just about repatriation to Africa. It is also a state of being. Rastafarians see Zion as the realization of divine truth, a way of life rooted in harmony, love, and connection with Jah, God. To live in Zion is to live in truth, to reject corruption, and to embrace liberty, the Rasta way of life grounded in peace, righteousness, and natural living. In this sense, Zion is wherever a person lives in alignment with Jah's will. Zion also reflects a profound spiritual awakening. It is the destination of the soul's journey toward consciousness, enlightenment, and unity with the divine. Rastafarian chants and prayers often speak of Mount Zion as a metaphor for this elevated state. It represents a higher plane of existence where suffering, injustice, and confusion are replaced with peace, understanding, and divine clarity. This vision of Zion stands in direct opposition to Babylon, which symbolizes the materialistic, oppressive, and deceitful system that dominates the modern world. To strive for Zion is to reject Babylon. It is to resist its control over the mind and soul. Zion, then, becomes a form of liberation, not just from physical captivity, but from mental enslavement. Through this lens, Zion is not merely a promise for the future. It is a present pursuit. It is found in every act of resistance, every meditation, every chant, every step towards self-awareness and divine connection. It is both the journey and the destination. As reggae music spread the Rasta message worldwide, Zion became a universal symbol, something that anyone, anywhere, could seek. It resonated with people looking for truth beyond the surface, meaning beyond the material, and justice beyond the systems of the world. But what exactly is Babylon, and why is it seen as the greatest enemy of Zion? To fully grasp the depth of Rastafari thought, we must explore the forces Zion stands against. Pushpin reminder, if you're finding this journey insightful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, and comment below. What does Zion mean to you? Let's keep this conversation growing. To understand the full weight of what Zion means in Rastafarianism, you must also understand what it stands against, Babylon. In Rasta philosophy, Zion and Babylon are not just opposites. They represent two entirely different worlds, two opposing realities. Where Zion is liberation, Babylon is oppression. Where Zion is truth, Babylon is deception. Where Zion is divine, Babylon is corrupt. Babylon, in Rastafari thought, represents the system. It's the term used for Western society, particularly the governments, institutions, and ideologies built on colonialism, slavery, capitalism, and white supremacy. Rastafarians view Babylon as a structure designed to exploit, manipulate, and dominate. It's not just political or economic, it's spiritual. Babylon is seen as a force that blinds people to the truth and disconnects them from their divine selves. For many Rastafarians, Babylon began with the transatlantic slave trade and continued through centuries of colonial rule, cultural erasure, and economic exploitation. It thrives in systems that devalue Black lives, promote materialism, destroy the earth, and suppress spiritual truth. Modern education, mass media, organized religion, and politics are all viewed, at least in part, as tools of Babylon. These are the instruments used to control thought, strip identity, and distract people from their spiritual purpose. By contrast, Zion is the refuge from all of this. Zion is not only a destination for physical repatriation, it is a spiritual sanctuary from Babylon's lies. To live in Zion is to live in truth, to reject the values and norms imposed by the system, and instead align oneself with righteousness, simplicity, and divine order. This battle between Babylon and Zion is ongoing. It's not just historical. It plays out daily in the choices individuals make. Rastafarians are called to resist Babylon in their everyday lives, whether through the food they eat, ital, the language they speak, Ieric, the music they create, reggae, or the way they treat others. Every act of resistance becomes a step toward Zion. This contrast also deeply influences the art and music of the movement. In reggae songs, Babylon is often condemned, exposed as the root of suffering and injustice. At the same time, Zion is praised as the haven of the righteous, the reward for those who stay true to the path. Artists like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Burning Spear help turn these concepts into universal symbols of struggle and hope. Zion versus Babylon is not just a metaphor. It's a worldview, a framework for understanding the world and one's place in it. It challenges followers to choose which path they walk, whether to conform to the systems of control or to seek truth, liberation, and divine connection. As we continue this journey, let's explore how this vision of Zion becomes even more powerful when connected to a real, physical place. Ethiopia, the land that Rastas have long identified as the earthly manifestation of the Promised Land. Pushpin, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you see traces of Babylon in today's world? Where do you find glimpses of Zion in your life or community? Subscribe, share, and comment below with your perspective. Let's keep this dialogue alive. In Rastafarianism, Zion is often described as a spiritual state, but for many Rastas, it is also a literal, physical place, Ethiopia. This East African nation is not just admired or respected, it is venerated as the ancestral homeland, the land of prophecy, and the true promised land. For Rastafarians, Zion lives in Africa, and Africa lives in Zion. Ethiopia holds a sacred position in the Rasta worldview for multiple reasons. Unlike most African countries, it was never fully colonized during the scramble for Africa. Its long history of independence, combined with its ancient Christian traditions and imperial lineage, made it a symbol of strength and divine favor. When Haile Selassie I was crowned Emperor of Ethiopia in 1930, many Rastafarians believed prophecy had been fulfilled. He was seen not only as the King of Kings, but as the living God, Jah incarnate. His throne represented the restoration of a divine black monarchy, and his homeland became Zion on earth. This belief was reinforced by biblical references. In many translations of the Bible, Ethiopia is mentioned as a land of spiritual significance. Phrases like, "Princes shall come out of Egypt," "Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands unto God," Psalm 68 verse 31, were interpreted as divine affirmations of Africa's sacred role. To the Rastafari, Ethiopia was not just mentioned in Scripture, it was written into destiny. The call for repatriation, returning to Africa, particularly to Ethiopia, became a key element of Rastafarian thought. For those in the Caribbean and across the diaspora, this was a call to return to roots, to undo the dislocation caused by slavery and colonialism. Repatriation was both a political and spiritual act, a reclaiming of land, culture, and identity. It wasn't only about moving physically to Africa, it was about recognizing Africa as home, as sacred ground, and as the site of divine redemption. Yet, repatriation was not always literal. For many Rastafarians, especially those unable to relocate, the connection to Ethiopia became symbolic. They created rituals, music, and community life that pointed toward Africa. They lived with Africa in their hearts, even if they remained in the West. Zion, in this sense, could be approached spiritually by rejecting Babylon and aligning with African identity and consciousness. Over time, some Rastafarians did make the journey. In the 1960s and 70s, small communities of Rastas migrated to Ethiopia, settling in places like Shashamane, land gifted by Haile Selassie to people of African descent in the diaspora. These settlements were seen as a fulfillment of prophecy and a tangible return to Zion. Ethiopia became both mythic and real, an ancient empire, a living culture, and a beacon of hope. It stood as proof that African people could rule themselves, live in dignity, and uphold spiritual truths that predated colonialism. As we move forward, we'll explore how Zion also extends beyond geography, into something deeply personal and internal. What happens when Zion is not just a place to return to, but a consciousness to awaken within? Pushpin, what's your take on Ethiopia as Zion? Have you ever felt connected to a homeland you've never seen? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video so we can continue growing this discussion. While many Rastafarians revere Ethiopia as the physical Zion, the movement also embraces a deeper, more personal understanding of what Zion truly is. Beyond land and borders, Zion exists as a state of consciousness, a spiritual condition rooted in divine awareness, inner peace, and connection to Jah. This understanding reflects a core truth in Rastafarian philosophy. You don't have to travel to Zion to live in it. Instead, Zion begins in the mind and heart. It is the space within where one is free from mental slavery, from the lies and illusions of Babylon. To awaken to Zion is to awaken to truth, to righteousness, to the sacred rhythm of life that flows in harmony with creation. Spiritual Zion is accessed through livity, the Rasta way of being that prioritizes natural living, unity, and the sacredness of all life. Livity isn't just about rituals or practices, it's about a spiritual posture. It involves conscious eating, speaking truthfully, maintaining peace, respecting the earth, and honoring the divine spark in all people. Through livity, one creates space for Zion within the self. Rastafarians also emphasize the power of meditation, chanting, and reasoning sessions, gatherings where brethren and sistren reflect on spiritual truths. These practices are not passive. They are active resistance against Babylon's influence. They cultivate Zion not just as a place of retreat, but as a force of transformation. In these moments of clarity and connection, believers claim Zion as their present reality, not just a distant promise. In this view, Zion becomes synonymous with enlightenment. It's not reserved for the afterlife or a faraway land. It is here and now, for those who seek and live by truth. This interpretation also helps Rastas in the diaspora maintain spiritual identity even when they are far from the African continent. They carry Zion within them. It shapes their worldview, their relationships, and their resistance to systems that seek to suppress their humanity. Zion as consciousness challenges the idea that liberation is only external. True freedom, Rastas teach, comes when the mind is unshackled, when one walks in love, and when life aligns with divine purpose. That is the inner Zion, a sanctuary of the spirit, protected from Babylon's reach. As we've seen, Zion is layered. It is a land, a symbol, and a spiritual state. But to fully understand its role in Rastafarianism, we must look at the figure most deeply tied to Zion in Rasta theology, His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie I. No figure is more central to the Rastafarian understanding of Zion than His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, the former emperor of Ethiopia. To many around the world, he was a political leader. But to the Rastafari, he is Jah incarnate, God in human form, the returned Messiah spoken of in prophecy. When Haile Selassie was crowned emperor in 1930, it was seen as a world-shifting event. His full title, King of Kings, Zion, as a concept, extends far beyond theology and Rastafarianism. It lives vibrantly in the culture, especially through music, language, and art. For many around the world, their first encounter with Zion came not through scripture or doctrine, but through the lyrics of reggae music. Artists like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Burning Spear, and many others turned Zion into a universal symbol of hope, justice, and spiritual freedom. In Marley's songs, Zion is often portrayed as a place of peace and refuge, contrasted with Babylon's corruption and violence. Tracks like Iron Lion Zion and Exodus reflect the journey of the oppressed searching for deliverance. Through his voice, Zion became a beacon, not just for Rastafarians, but for anyone resisting systems of oppression. Beyond music, Zion appears in visual art, murals, and poetry that reflect the struggles and triumphs of the African diaspora. It's painted as a green and gold land of return, a mountaintop of truth, or a radiant vision inside the soul. These cultural expressions keep the idea of Zion alive, accessible, and relevant. Even the Rasta language, rich with meaning and metaphor, speaks of Zion regularly. The use of terms like I and I reinforces the unity between the self and the divine, a relationship that lives within the consciousness of Zion. Culture, for the Rastafari, is not separate from spirituality. It is a tool of resistance, expression, and celebration. Through it, Zion becomes not just an idea, but a living, breathing force. In today's world, Zion continues to evolve in the minds and lives of Rastafarians. While the core principles remain the same, spiritual freedom, African identity, and divine connection, new generations have expanded the interpretation of Zion to meet the realities of a globalized, digital, and often divided world. For some, Zion is still a call to repatriation, with Ethiopia remaining the spiritual and ancestral homeland. For others, Zion is found in community building, conscious living, and cultural preservation, even if they never leave the diaspora. The mission is no longer only about returning to Africa physically, but also about reclaiming African dignity, truth, and sovereignty wherever one stands. Rastafarians now use music, social media, activism, and education to spread the message of Zion across continents. It has become a living movement, one that embraces tradition while also adapting to modern realities. The idea of Zion continues to challenge injustice, inspire unity, and call people toward a higher state of consciousness, no matter where they are in the world. Zion in Rastafarianism is not just a place, it's a path, a vision, and a call to liberation. Whether seen as Ethiopia, a state of consciousness, or a spiritual homeland, Zion remains a symbol of hope, truth, and divine justice. We'd love to hear from you. What does Zion mean to you? What topics should we explore next? If you found this video meaningful, remember to subscribe, like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice helps shape what comes next.